What's going on, guys? This is your boy Random Guy Kev, and this is Thoughts of a Random Guy. We talk about many things dealing with love, dating, relationships, adulting, life's ups and downs, and the ever evolving world of just being a human. Don't forget to check me out on all your favorite social media platforms at Random Guy Kev and my website at randomguykev.com. Today's topic is Twitter threads, and my co host for this episode is.
Dan.
Welcome back, Dan. Thanks for coming back on here.
Good to be back. Good to be back.
Yeah, so this Twitter thread is it's an interesting one because a lawyer posted this one, and here it reads, "Hey, so I'm a lawyer, huge true crime fan, and a police slash prison abolitionist. Let's play a game. Show me a serial killer, and I'll point out the police incompetence necessary for the killer to kill. Police do not keep you safe. Least of all from serial killers. Prove me wrong." That right there, that's huge.
Yeah. I mean, that's just so, you're ripping off the Band-Aid right off the bat. It's pretty, it's, it's not necessary. Yeah, it's the police their job isn't, they're not preventing these crimes from happening. Like, they're after the fact, and it's like, oh, maybe we'll figure this out, kind of, if there's
Maybe.
enough evidence. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe we'll figure it out. And it's like, bro, and she's kind of right because if you look at a lot of the true crimes that's out there, like cops get thrown like evidence and stuff like that. Like, yo, I'm being stalked or I'm being harassed or this is happening. And they're just like, I don't think so. Or that person gets kidnapped. It's like, they're an adult. They haven't been missing for 48 hours. You gotta wait. It's like, bro, what?
Yeah, it's like it's the signs are all there and it's clear to everybody else that would be looking from the outside in, but they're just like, yeah, there's just not enough for us to do anything. So and then they get, they get kidnapped, or the stalker does, who knows what, if it's like that. It's kind of a scenario where you're like, okay, there's proof. Hey, there's this. It's very like widely documented, this phenomenon happening where they were just like, oh yeah, there's not enough for us to do anything, so we're gonna not not do anything, and then tragedy strikes. So it's very prolific.
Yeah, do you think it has something to do with training or just not caring or not wanting to put the extra effort in?
I think that it's definitely probably like it's definitely a level of like effort, and sometimes I'm sure that they don't want to, they're like, this is a lot of effort to have to look into. But I think it's like it's I'd say it's more feigned incompetence, right? I'd say that they're like, oh well, they don't want to follow up with these, you know like when it comes to like domestic violence cases, right? Like they're police officers, like how they're trying to restructure, making calls. Generally, like, officers called to a house for a domestic violence, occurrence or something, doesn't ever actually assist. It never is helpful, and it just, has a tendency to either, continue to make the victim be a victim, or because it's like it's on a personal level. It's them being like, there's no way that this, everything looks pretty okay here. I don't have to put in effort. I don't want to have to deal with this, or this guy, or this emotional thing happening. So I'm just gonna not deal with it. Like, I feel like there's a lot of that on that personal level of not wanting to deal with it as well.
Yeah, and I mean, here's one, Jeffrey Dahmer. That's that's I think everybody's watched that Netflix series where literally dude was moved to a black area where he could hunt, and cops were called a number of times because of the disturbances, and the smell and things going on, and the cops still did nothing. And it's like he even like had the dude outside in front of the cops, like, oh, oh no, I'm just bringing him back inside, da 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 da, and the cops were just like, oh, okay. It's not like they even checked to see if things were good. It was just like, they got it.
Yeah, they didn't even bother to be like, this guy's, clearly, this is a very, you would any other I mean, you would ask most people, you'd be like, you'd figure would get a little more scrutiny than that, and sometimes that's the problem with police enforcement is sometimes it's so subjective. Like they they say it's you're obstructing when really you're not, and you're just you don't have to give X amount of information or any of this stuff. So it's weird. The hard part is how inconsistent it can be, and that makes it super hard to ever predict how a scenario is gonna play out. Right? Like it's wild.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's like they always consider things obstruction, and it's like, but are you really helping me?
Right.
Like that's like, are you really gonna help me? And it's interesting. Like we could talk about the police. I mean, there's good police, there's bad police. I know people
Mm.
talk like, oh, all police are bad police. Like, no, I don't think so. Um, there are good ones out there, but I mean, for a true crime person like myself that always watches some type of true crime or listens to something, it's like the pattern. I mean, I'm sorry, the pattern is always there where it's like, hey, we're coming to you for your help, and then they're always dismissive. They don't want, in a sense, they don't want to do their job. Like what was the most recent one in Long Island? Wow, I can't. There was a killer. What's his name? It's been years because they didn't. It was like the cops. I think it was the chief of police. He was blocking like the FBI and other agencies from coming in. Um, it's a Long Island. I think his name is the Long Island serial killer. Oh, sorry, Gilgo Beach serial killer. There it is.
Ah, okay.
And he was recently caught. Like that's after like years. It was like July 2023, and this
Oh,
dude was killing since
really?
the 90s along the same strip, dumping bodies. And come to find out, they had so much evidence. They had the dude's DNA, but the cops didn't want to do their job. Like you can find out like there's a bunch of like Netflix series and about this because this was like one of those things where it came down to that police department not wanting to get other people, other agencies involved and actually doing their job, um, to actually catch the person, and the person lived right in the area.
That's insane. It's the way it's, and that's I think where the sometimes. Well, that's not even what it's crazy to think that sometimes I don't know what's up with sometimes with like even like local police forces. It's like why do you have to be it's like the FBI. If it's the FBI coming and knocking at your door and being like, hey, we want to investigate this, look at this, and like you're preventing that from happening. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's just
Like,
ridiculous.
yeah, this guy, like, I think he was picked up in Midtown Manhattan, because after a while, they connected the evidence to him and found his a disposable, well, a cell phone number that he was still using from way back when, I believe to text the families or something like that.
Oh my
It was like,
god.
bro, it was like if you look it up, you'll be like, yeah, these cops, somebody needs to get arrested or something needs to happen. And the same thing goes for like the Night Stalker. The Night Stalker was another killer in New York where he was just like his story, like it was in the 70s, I want to say the 70s or 80s, where you know he worked in Manhattan and like he would go down, at the time, Broadway, yeah, Broadway, and go to like a whorehouse or something like that, like, but find a prostitute, and then all of a sudden do what he needs to do. She's dead, and he goes on about his business, and it's the same thing. Cops had evidence, had this, but it was like they didn't really move on anything.
It's just like yeah, it's just not. It's like, who are they? It's like, what are they doing? What purpose does it serve to not prosecute these cases or to like follow through, other than the fact that you're trying to avoid having to do actual work? It's like they're like, it's messy. I don't want to deal with it. Like, who
Wait, I think
knows? Who's gonna care?
I wait. I messed up. The night I'm getting all my killers confused.
Oh boy.
I'm getting Night Stalker was in California. Okay, I'm getting him confused because he's the Night Stalker. Essentially, he would okay he would oh man essentially a sex offender who in California in the 1980s he would go into people's houses, in the middle of the night, have sex with them, things of that nature. And then the people that actually caught him were the neighbors because the sketch of him was going around, was circulating, and people from the neighborhood recognized his face and they started beating his ass. And then like he ran to the cops begging for the cops to save him.
Wow. And that's where that's the thing. Like, if it's it shouldn't if they're the police are there to serve this purpose, like, this is the thing that they're supposed to be doing, is preventing crime and intervening in crime. And and it has to come down to the people. It's like, what are we paying these people so much money to actually do? Protect and serve doesn't
But
seem like it's at the core of
a
what they
lot
do.
of them, they get paid so much money and they get so much overtime, and a lot of time they're just sitting in their cars.
Right. It's like people, yeah, sitting down, like, and think of how many some of these people have been on the job for, so many years, and you're just like, there's always a question of, uh, capability and longevity for, the for officers. You've been doing it for 20 years. You're probably, sitting around in cars. I can't imagine that you're really trying to take the steps and make yourself more of an asset to like the community or whatever, or try to better yourself, like to try to make change. You just get older and you're like, I'm too old for this.
Yeah, no, like so the other one I was talking about, literally, he's called the Times Square Killer. Uh,
Times Square killer.
Richard Cottingham, I believe,
Mm,
and he raped and murdered 18 women between 1967 to 1980 in New York, between New York and New Jersey.
Jesus.
Bro, like it's the craziest. It's called Crime Scene, the Times Square, the Times Square Killer, and some of the women were prostitutes. Some of them were just like regular women he's seen, and was like, all right, what's up, and eventually killed them, and then he's one of those. A lot of these killers pay attention to the news. He would pay attention to the news to kind of determine, hey, if they hey, somebody coming for me? No, okay, cool. I'm gonna keep it moving.
Right, exactly. If he's flying under the radar or not, because we broadcast things so quickly.
Yeah.
What does it say?
So,
It says he told a journalist he had committed at least 80 to 100 perfect murders.
mm-hmm.
That's just insane.
Him sitting there saying perfect murders, bro. Like,
Perfect.
and
Perfect.
if you watch some of the old, and I think they have it in this, a lot of the old like news stuff for it, and in the news articles, like everybody's in a panic in the Times Square area. The dude works in the Times Square area too. He worked in that area, so it was like, bro, like there's only but so much you like. You
Ugh.
keep revisiting the same places and doing the same thing. It's like, and no one's catching on.
Right. You're just like, you'd figure that there's a way for you to set something up to be able to, if you could figure out some of the stuff is happening.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like, I just, that's
I mean,
so wild.
do you think it's okay? So back to the initial thing. Like, do you think it's lack of training, lack of empathy?
I
It's
think
just
it's, it goes to the, it goes to the lack of empathy. It's probably a lack of it's complacency in a way.
Mm-hmm.
They're not striving to actively do things to help protect and serve the community. It's them. It's preserving their own sense of whatever peace. Like arguably, there is the bad side
Mm-hmm.
and the terrible things that you have to see and deal with and hear about being an officer. But like, and I know that's hard. It can be hard, but it's so I would say that there's a level of lack of it's the lack of empathy and willingness to kind of actually like push themselves outside of whatever level of effort they've been maintaining, but it's also probably a level of incompetence, right? It's like there's not an excessive amount of training that law enforcement generally gets when it comes to like de-escalation. In scenarios, like it seems like from what I've read, for the most part, they spend all this time on the range, right? And then that's good. You want that because they're carrying guns, but they also should be spending, arguably, they're spending more time defusing scenarios and amending situations with
Le-
people, and
Learning
that
the
is where the
human mind,
training should be.
essentially.
Right, exactly. The psychology of being able to interact with somebody who is potentially, you know, belligerent or angry or understanding the ins and outs of these cases. Sometimes they just are like, oh, I've been on the job, 10 years. I already know how this goes. Da 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 da. I can't do anything. But it also, I mean, there's also the other side that it could be where it's like, because they're in part of the system, they know how the system works and they know that, you know, the extent of what they're able to know and express could also, they know, they're like, if I don't have more than this, I'll never get it prosecuted. I can't hold on to this person, da da da.
Yeah.
And there's definitely that, but I'd wager it more towards a lack of uh, the definitely lack of training and trying to understand, not have empathy for other people in the communities. It's like a lot of law enforcement aren't embedded in the communities. They don't necessarily, at least in like a lot of these bigger places like New York, they don't all necessarily live in the towns in which they police.
Oh, of
You know,
course not. A lot of these big cities, it's like a lot of the cops, they live in a different place than where they, like you said, like than where they police. It's like, and a lot of, I know some towns are looking to get rid of that. Where, hey, if you work in this town, you have to live in this town, type thing. But yeah, I mean, again, I feel like when it comes, we don't hear a lot about serial killers nowadays
mm,
because
mm,
of
mm.
all the technology, but I'm pretty sure they're still out there.
Yeah,
But
I'm
it's like,
almost certain that these
you got to be
situations are
smarter
still happening.
nowadays.
Yeah,
You have to be much smarter. There's so much technology out there that it's like, yeah, if somebody's not catching you now, like they may not catch you later unless you like fuck up.
right.
Because the
Like you
way,
have to
like
go
back in the
wrong.
day, the Zodiac killer and such, it's like these people could get away with stuff because there really wasn't, cameras everywhere and like fingerprinting and DNA and stuff like. And then if they did get your DNA, it's like, what are they running it against?
Right. And not everybody, like, you could literally, there was a point they didn't you didn't have accessible public records, so
Yeah.
you could literally just drive to another state and start a new life and pretend
Mm-hmm.
like you're this other person and just have this alias, and no one will ever know.
No, no, not at all. And the thing is, it's like nowadays, it's like when people do the ancestry stuff,
Mm,
those companies
yeah,
sell your DNA. People
yeah,
think their DNA is safe. Like, no, they're just being sold to certain companies, the government. That's how a lot of times now they're catching people later on because they have a familial match with somebody in this line. So now it's like, now I gotta figure out what's going on.
Right. Now that's it. That's it. Yeah. That's interesting. That's kind of why I mean I never did the 23andMe ancestry thing. Not as I mean, that's a reason, right? Is they're not it's just like, using some other like using an app or something. Your data isn't necessarily secure in yours. So let's say for some reason you know, I had to be investigated for something, like they would be required to give up any of that information, like so.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
and do I foresee myself partaking in criminal activities? I do not see that at any point in time in
yeah. I
my
get you.
future.
Yeah, you see, and then the whole true crime thing and like cops. It's like it's a scary world we live in because I mean with the with the whole true crime stuff, it's like you got to keep your head on a swivel because somebody could be smiling in your face. Next thing you know, that person's a killer. They just finished doing something. They gonna do something to you next. I mean, it's all about maintaining a level head at the end of the day, but sometimes it gets you thinking like, okay, who's really gonna be here to save me when things are going wrong?
Right?
Because
How am I going to get found?
yeah, like because a lot of times they have the evidence, but then now what? Again, their department may be corrupt. They may have an issue. They may see something and be like, it's not a real thing. That's not that's not an issue. We'll be fine. They'll be fine. Or that person. Oh, how old are they? Oh, okay, yeah. Maybe they ran away from home. Like what? You telling me a 12-year-old ran away from home and no one snatched them up or something? Like, I
Right.
mean,
Yeah, they were
it's
that
possible.
12-year-old really made that active to like the kid when you do that as a child, like if your family would like, you'd ever get that far, you'd get down the street and you'd realize, "Oh man, I messed up. I don't have anywhere else to go." And you'd walk back in the house with shame. You
Yeah.
know. That's, assuming you got out of the house for some people.
Yeah, I mean, there's again, I think in this day and age, we have so much technology out there that it's harder. I think it's harder for serial killers to fuck up or not be able to determine who's a serial killer because all of our smartwatches, our tablets, our cars, everything has some type of connectivity to a GPS or cellular something, where it's like, okay, we can determine who was in this area when this person was killed. Let's see if we have footage. Do we have footage? Okay, we
Right.
can pull cameras from here, 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 and here. It's, I it just to me, it's just like not a lot of thinking goes into these, trying to solve crimes or prevent them.
Right. It's just not something that they're actually, striving to do.
Very, very reactive.
Mhm. Yeah.
Very, very
Well, and it's
reactive
like
behavior.
they're just like, oh, now that something as terrible has actually happened, they're like, now we can actually, you know, now we can actually do something.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So as we come to a close here, guys, definitely watch. It's called Crime Scene. That's Times Square Killer. That's on Netflix, and another one's called The Night Stalker. That's also on Netflix. There's a bunch of true crimes, of course, all over Netflix, but those two had me like, bro, what
I
is
gotta put
going
that on
on?
gotta put that on the list.
Yeah, they're like, uh, that was like literally like cops just like just dropping the ball, and I'm like, bruh, you can't be
You're
serious right
like,
now.
it can't be true. You can't be
Yeah,
real.
this can't be real life. I mean, and then there's also some other stuff like capturing the killer nurse. That one, man, that it was upsetting because it's, it's just a nurse that was just killing his patients.
Oh,
Yeah, it was bad, and it's like nobody really paid attention until like
was he doing it like was the nurse doing it like medically, like, or just
yeah, yeah. People would come in semi-healthy, like they would have like little issues here and there, but all of a sudden they died. And who was the last person to administer medicine to them? This guy. This guy jumped from like 6, 7, 8, 9 hospitals before he got caught.
Wow. Holy jeez. How that wasn't like that's crazy to me.
bruh. Like
That's a pattern.
it's a huge matter. It's the guy was based in New Jersey. He got, I mean, he was arrested in 2003, but he had a 16 year, 16, 17. He was, yeah, about 16 years, I think, or 17. Like, I think his name was Charles Cullen or something like that. Um, and that's another fuck up. Not necessarily, I mean, the cops could have looked into it, but it's more administrative.
Right.
Like, the hospital, like in a hospital is another place where shit like this happens, where they turn a blind eye, like they don't want to get sued, so they're just like, you know what, let's ignore this didn't happen. It's like, bro, what? You can't be
Right.
serious
Or
right
they're
now.
just, like, it's very well documented the you know the disparaging distance and when discrediting when it comes to you know understanding and believing women and like even especially or black men and black women and like
Mm-hmm.
believing them when they come to with actual like symptoms that
Yeah.
they may be experiencing and it's documented that the doctors like will discount and be like no, that's not really like an issue. It's
Mm-hmm.
like it's insane that the level of complacency that can sometimes happen and be like people can still keep practicing. It's insane.
It's bro, it's the craziest thing. I think that's another one people need to watch, because it was like, yeah, I hope that though. I like, for somebody to be able to jump around after killing a bunch of people, and no one says anything or nobody notices. That's crazy. But I mean,
Yeah, like it
again,
doesn't add up. At like after the first few times it happens, there should definitely you got to have like some sort of
something.
something to stop this from continuing. At least to probation or something.
Yes. Another one, the Sons of Sam, and I feel like everybody's kind of heard of that. Son of Sam. That's another Netflix one. That's like, bro, like why? So it took y'all this long to catch this dude? Okay,
Oh
we got
my
it.
gosh, that
Um,
was New York. Was that New York guy?
yeah, that was New York. It's another one is the lady, what's this? The little old lady killer in Mexico. That one is crazy. That's you can listen to that story. It's like she was like one of the bigger stories in Mexico as far as serial killers go. The little old lady killer, and it took the cops forever to find her as a killer, because they believed it was a man and not that it was a woman.
Wow.
They had their own personal bias.
Wow. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
Yes.
But you know what? And that's the thing, like, totally believable that some people would be like, let's just rule out that it could ever be,
Yep.
a woman.
Mm-hmm. And it's like, sometimes, and that's the thing. Sometimes cops just get, tunnel vision, where it's like, yeah, no, it's probably the black guy, or it's probably the Spanish guy, or it's probably this white guy, and it's like, it's a bunch of other people around. Like, don't get tunnel
Profile.
vision.
That profiling is crazy. Like, just like assuming that it's going to be, you just never know who it's going to. You never know who it's how you're never going to know who it's going to be if everybody just assumes that's who
So,
it
yep.
is.
Mm-hmm.
They're on this witch hunt for this man who isn't a murderer.
Yep.
It was a woman the whole time. It's like assumptions kill, man.
Go all the time. But yeah, as we get to the end of this episode, what are your thoughts on this whole Twitter thread that we were just talking about? Or what do you want to share with people? Hopefully, like something like, I don't know. I don't know
Yeah,
at this
I
point.
mean,
Have hope.
it's yeah, have hope. I mean, but realistically, the thing that we all have to unfortunate it's an unfortunate reality that a lot of us, you know, you have to as a member of a society, like we all have to learn how to, have be aware situationally and know potential danger signs of friends of us being in public, how to ways that we can counteract if some terrible situation is happening. I mean, there's only so much that we can do, unfortunately, as
Mm-hmm.
like people. But part of it's like the unfortunate reality is like no one's gonna come save you, right? Like sometimes some people say that in like the weirdest of ways, but you know you need to understand that law enforcement isn't going to always be the solution that you need, and they may be not willing to, or they're complacent, and you need to understand that going in. You're like, as
Yeah.
much as you have, there's a potential that it's not enough because of how our system works, and it's very unfortunate and it sucks. But
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But thank you for joining me for this episode.
yeah,
Um,
thank you for having me.
that's it, guys. You guys can find me on all social media platforms at Random Guy Kev and my website at randomguykev.com. Don't forget to check in, and I will catch you guys on the next one.